wanted to talk about a topic that one of you has asked for: the psychology of scams. Why smart people fall for it. I'm going to begin this with a true story. The year was 1906. The place was Prussia, erstwhile Germany. It was under King Kaiser Wilhelm II, the last emperor of Prussia. The city was Berlin. There was a man, an army officer, beautifully dressed, walks out of a cafe onto Pulitzer Plaza, and he looks at a battalion, a small troop of soldiers walking, and he goes to the commander of that troop and yells at him and says, "Hey man, are you the commander?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Follow me. We have the orders all the way from the very top that we have a mission that we need to go and accomplish." And the young corporal who was the head of that troop quickly understood that he was getting a command from a senior of his, and he decides to join him, and they start marching towards the train station of Berlin. So as they're walking towards the train station, as they're marching with this little troop, they see another troop of another 10 men, and he again gives orders to that commander to join forces and says that he has the order from the very top that they're on a very important mission that they need to go and accomplish. So now they have a small battalion of people that they've gathered. They're all marching towards this train station. They get on a train which is heading towards the town of Köpenick, which is just 20 miles outside of Berlin. So they disembark from the train in Köpenick train station, and they march straight towards the city hall. They walk into the city hall, and the troop storms the city hall, and he orders the mayor who's in session there. He says, "You are under arrest. We have an order from the Kaiser, from the very top, that you have been charged with treason." The mayor looks and he's baffled. He doesn't know what happened. He says, "Where is your warrant?" He says, "My battalion here is my warrant. Follow my orders now." And he asks his troops to go and handcuff the mayor and all of his officers, all of the people on duty there. And then he goes around, starts searching the city hall. He asks that the vaults be opened. He uncovers there's a vault in which there are 4,000 marks, which in present day money is $250,000 US. So he takes it, puts it in a bag, and he still continues searching. He searches and he cannot find what he wants, and he says, "Okay, it's time for us now." He orders his troops to say, take the mayor to the capital, take him to the police headquarters, and I will see you shortly. So the marching orders are given. The troops take him to the headquarters in Berlin, and this man, Commander Captain Voigt, walks towards the train station, goes into the checked luggage place, picks up a baggage that he's left there, walks into the restroom, and that's the last time anybody's heard of Captain Voigt. A man walks out from there dressed shabbily in tattered clothes. Tucked neatly under one arm is the uniform of a German officer, and tucked under the other arm is a bag full of coins. And he quickly disappears into the crowd of the Köpenick train station. Back in Berlin, at the headquarters, there is complete mayhem. Nobody understands who asked for this mayor to be arrested. Nobody understands how the orders were brought from the Kaiser. The Kaiser doesn't have any clue. And so they find out that they have been duped. This complete thing was a scam because there's nobody by the name of Captain Voigt on the records of the bureaucracy of the German army. So now the story makes headlines. Everybody's wrapped, everybody's completely consumed by this mystery of this person, Captain Voigt, who nobody can trace as to what happened to this person, where he came from, and now where he's disappeared. As it makes its round through the newspapers, a person in Berlin, an ex-convict, recognizes the picture of the sketch of this man that now the police is looking for as his cellmate, who only 8 months ago was released from prison, and discloses his identity as a cobbler who was caught for a theft and was released from prison and could not find a job. So as the detectives start piecing the story, start tracking this person based on the tip-off from his ex-conman friend, they find his apartment, storm into his apartment one morning, and they find Wilhelm Voigt. Not Captain Voigt, but Wilhelm Voigt, eating his breakfast very peacefully. And as the police detectives storm in, he asks them to wait. He says, "I'm not done. Let me finish with this breakfast," and very coolly surrenders after his breakfast is done. And so he's brought in front of a judge. The judge listens to his story, and the story goes that this guy was a cobbler. He was caught for a petty theft, put into prison, was released, and after his release from prison could not find a job because he did not have the papers for him to be able to seek a job, because convicts were not allowed to find regular jobs, like as we know, even in our current day criminal justice system. So apparently what he was trying to do really when he raided that city hall in Copenhagen, what he was trying to get documents where he could forge and he could go and find himself a job. And so when they hear his story, the entire country of Germany feels a great sense of empathy, so much so that even that judge who's listening to his story hears about his trials and tribulations of just trying to make his ends meet, just trying to get a regular job, just trying to get back on his own feet. And he gives him a very reduced sentence of 4 years. Now the word, obviously, all this whole story reaches the emperor, and the Kaiser chuckles at the sheer bravado of this man, the sheer the trickery of this person to be able to take the entire bureaucracy of Germany and turn it on its head. And he actually ends up pardoning Wilhelm Voigt. So Wilhelm Voigt is released from prison only a few months after he's put into jail, and then he becomes a sensation. He gets a book writing deal. People want him to come to different parts of the country for him to sign autographs, and they would pay him. A restaurant gives him a lifetime offer to come and have food, so that, because they know that every time he comes into the restaurant, he draws a crowd and it'll boost their business. And retired woman writes her pension in his name. And so this person becomes a household name. There are statues erected. There's a wax statue in the Madame Tussauds Museum. And today, 100 and something years later, we're still talking about the story of how Wilhelm Voigt, this is known as the Captain Voigt of Copenhagen. Now folks, there were a lot of educated people, there was a lot of trained eyes, there's a lot of people who think they knew the system, and yet they were taken for a ride. So how do con men scam educated, intelligent, and smart people? If you know about the Bernie Madoff case that happened, which actually brought this word of Ponzi scheme into what is now a household name. He was so clever. He was so professional in the way he cast his net that there were banks, HSBC got involved in his scam. The New York University got caught up in his scam. Celebrities like Steven Spielberg were part of his scam. So now I'm going to share with you 3 things that I have learned as I have got caught up in a scam myself. Yes, I am now actually working my way out of a scam that I found myself in last year. And so I'm going to share with you what is it that I've learned as I begin to understand how, when somebody who's seemingly very mindful, very cautious, doesn't have a lot of money to throw away, but at the same time, I think I have some basic intelligence. So how do the con men work? So I'm going to share with you a small story. About 10 years ago, I went to teach at a prison here in San Francisco. It's the women's prison of San Francisco, downtown. And I used to go teach meditation. I was invited to teach a series of meditation lessons to these women there. So I would keep going back there week after week. And one day, one of the matrons, one of the wardens of the prison, she saw me walking out and she called me as I was leaving the prison. And she said, "Listen, boy, I got to tell you something. I've been watching you come and go in and out of this place. Do you realize that your students, these women prisoners, are slowly wrapping you around their fingers?" I was like, "What do you mean? I've just come here to teach my meditation classes. What are you talking about?" She says, "That's what you think. But they have something that I've been noticing. They've been doing to you that is slowly weaving you into their web." And she suggested I go home and read a book called Games Criminals Play. So I did. So how criminals work? First of all, they have a level of authority. Outwardly, they have to present themselves, they will present themselves as somebody who has clear signs of authority, somebody that you will respect. So in the case of Wilhelm Voigt, he had this beautiful attire of being a senior in the German military. So when you translate that to how these people, scammers, work with you personally, they will take the guise of being a Costco membership, or they will take the guise of being your utility, your water department, or one of the most famous ones here in America is the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service. So they will pretend to be somebody of authority. They'll have that logo, they'll have that email signature, they'll have that personality, they'll have that dress, they'll look like a UPS guy who's trying to just come and deliver a package to you, etc., etc. And we as humans, whether we like it or not, we are trained to yield to authority. That's one of the conditioning of our modern day society, right? We don't ask questions. So that's the first thing. They come in with an air of authority, a sincere look of having some professionalism, somebody who has a place in society. Number two, they will talk to you and they will try to get you to agree to something very small. So for example, in the case of the prison that I was going and teaching, they'll ask me to do them little favors. Just get me a pencil so I can take notes. Get me a notebook. Can you carry this little letter out and mail it to my family, my daughter who I haven't seen in 5 years, 10 years, etc. They will try to get a tiny slice. They will say, "Oh, is your membership expired? Check your membership. Are you having a low credit score, for example?" So they'll have you do something really small to get you to get into that, what that lady, that police warden, the jail warden was telling me at the prison. And slowly, once you comply with one, they start slicing the loaf. slightly bigger, slightly bigger, slightly bigger. And then they will have to get you into the state of chaos. Now, no scheme can be won when you're completely calm, when you're completely in having your faculties about yourself. So there has to be a sense of urgency. There has to be something that is chaotic. They totally thrive on confusion. So in the case of Captain Voigt, he yelled that when there's this time where there was chaos happening in Europe, he used the power, he used the authority, he used the name of the commander-in-chief. And when he yelled at that young commander who had very little experience, there was a sense of pandemonium in his mind, and he yielded to his first request and says, yes, I will join you. And then he used that power, show of power, when he went towards the train station. He was able to go and bring another little troop and another little troop, and then when he showed up at the city hall, he looked very, very authentic. He had an army behind him. And then when he yelled at that mayor and he orders his troops to charge, to arrest everybody there was pandemonium. There was no time to think. There was no time to sit and deliberate on what is right and what's wrong and who has the authority, etc. So also, folks, these racketeers, scammers will look for weaknesses where they can create a sense of pandemonium. For example, maybe you are a father who has lost a job recently and is struggling to make ends meet, or they will try to target one of the vices, anger, as you've seen in some of the recent political campaigns, some sort of frustration against some foreigner, some other force that they dislike. If you have that brewing within you, they will capitalize on it. And so your faculties, your rationale will completely shut down. And you begin to toe this line. You begin to start chipping in. And recently there was a report that's come out that one of our campaigns done by our ex-president here in this country, they asked him for the re-election campaign to donate an amount. And these people donated $500 million. 3/4 of which was something that is against their own wish. Apparently there was a fine print there when they were making the donations that it was going to be a weekly recurring donation. So imagine that you went ahead and put $500 as a one-time donation to re-elect this person. What his campaign was actually doing was they were taking away $500 every week for over a month. And so now when these people are going and trying to reclaim the money, they're saying, sorry, too bad. That was in the fine print. You didn't read it. We did nothing illegal. So ask yourself, which vulnerability of yours is being up for grabs, open for being exploited? If you're a calm, steady, cool person, it's very unlikely somebody is going to be able to make that foray, that entry into your psyche to be able to start manipulating it and weaving that web, which gets more and more complex that you find it very difficult to extricate yourself from. And so, what are some of the ways in which you can avoid being taken into one of these scams? So one of the things is, when something appears too good to be true, it probably is. When you get a whiff of something to be slightly off, ask yourself, time to put the brakes on, time to completely slow down and say, this needs to be verified, cross-check. A lot of times scammers will not spend the time of day for them to go through extensive process of verifying their identity, their authenticity, and who they are, and proving that they are who they call themselves to be. They want to move on to the more gullible, the less careful, the less accurate people who want to be able to cross their T's and dot their I's. And another thing is, when you find yourself sucked into any kind of a scam, so now with the age of technology, scamming has become one of the most prolific businesses around the globe because there is such a low bar. They can sit somewhere in some other corner of the world and be able to enter into your life through an email, through a text message, through asking you to download something on a website. And then what happens is, once you become part of their nexus, it becomes so difficult, even after you find yourself having been scammed, for the authorities to be able to track them down because they're hiding behind several layers of complexity, several layers of bureaucracy, where entering into a foreign government, entering into finding out where their computer is, where the hacker center is. So it's almost becomes a wild goose chase to be able to go and get justice, go and recover your lost funds, time, whatever it is that you've lost. And so one of the things that I urge you to do is that when you find yourself being caught, like I told you, they go with these slight, small slivers. They start adding up, they start eating away, and they will get you further and further into their clutches. And when there's evidence, and here's the part, here's a very unfortunate part, once people find themselves, these intelligent people who get caught in scams, the momentum, inertia, if they find themselves, okay, I've already done this, I've already been applying this, this wrinkle-free cream for 6 months now. I've been taking these herbal pills, these things that are supposed to give me this vitality, right? Supplements for months now. You say, when you have evidence, one of the unfortunate things is people fail to act. People fail to stop. People fail to change their ways. Momentum is so much easier. Once they've invested, they say the prize, right? So think about even what lottery. What is that? What is lottery? The chances of you actually winning are 1 in a million, several million perhaps. And yet weekly, monthly, people go and start investing, keep investing. Lots of Ponzi schemes are like that. They get into it, and then once you've done it, you find it like, oh, you know what? The odds are so much in favor. The odds are like, so in favor. It's actually not in your favor, but the winning, if I win, if I'm in one of the million people, look at what my life can be. So with that promise, with that false promise, without putting logic, greed sucks us into keep feeding that scheme. So folks, so here are some things for you to use your sense, bring yourself back to center, catch yourself before you go too far into this thing. And like I said, when something is too good to be true, it probably is. Any which way you can reach out to me. I welcome your suggestions for topics. I always want to be addressing things that are most important to you rather than me just coming up with these random things that I kind of imagine in my own mind. So I want to know what's important to you, what's on top of your head, what are things that are issues that you're tackling with, and I'll be happy to take that on as make it part of our next chapter through this journey that we've been on, this Soul Tribe Meditate with Jay. With that, I'd like to thank you all again. I will see you same time, same place next week. Until then, be well.